Welcome to Santa Bootcamp!
Why waste another minute when Santa's work is to be done?
A Lifetime original movie.
I wouldn't do that.
I'm not even supposed to be here. This is all a big misunderstanding.
Let me hear a ho ho ho. Ho ho ho.
Directed by Melissa Joan Hart.
I'm not here to discover the joy of Christmas. I have enough of that in my life already.
You have a special someone?
Not right now.
Well, that just leaves a houseplant.
This November.
Why don't you just resign yourself to being here? Might even be fun.
He is distractingly handsome.
I haven't had much success in the romance department.
Doesn't surprise me. You have to stop worrying about things, Emily. You've got to just go for it.
Rita Moreno and Emily Kinney.
Transformation.
Santa Bootcamp. Premieres Saturday, November 19th. Part of It's a Wonderful Lifetime. Only on Lifetime.
Welcome back to yet another stocking stuffer. I've already lost count. We've reached that point in the season where I can't count anymore. But this is a very special episode. It is finally another Santa-rific episode with lots of Santa-isms, which is something we don't get enough of these days in these movies. And also, this is a big guns movie. This has a celebrity director, and it has no less than an EGOT winner herself, Rita Moreno. And I am not nearly talented enough to handle this on my own, so I have brought in the big guns. With me is a Santa expert, a comedian, a writer, a performer, a jack of all trades, the one and only Kevin Maher. Welcome to the Stocking Stuffers.
Thank you. It is delightful to be here. I'm so glad I had an excuse to watch Santa Bootcamp. I said it. I said the name of the episode.
That's right.
I'm just diving right in. But
Let's
people
do
know
it.
that from clicking on the
Yes,
episode.
well. Santa Bootcamp, a Lifetime original, made for Lifetime, produced by Lifetime, and quite a star-studded affair, would you say?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know going into it. I knew our big name was going to be Rita Moreno. I knew Melissa Joan Hart was behind the camera. I was surprised when John Schuck showed up of
They
Robert
were not
Altman
pushing
movie
him.
fame.
Yeah, every
no.
commercial you saw was just, Rita Moreno.
Yeah,
Hello? Come on.
They held on to that secret.
Yeah.
But our friends listening would know him from a handful of Robert Altman movies. He was in The Munsters Today, playing Herman Munster. The name of the show was The Munsters.
Not the Rob Zombie Munsters of today, if you will.
What else is John Schuck? People going to recognize him from?
Everything, but the disappointing thing is when you quickly pull up his IMDb, because IMDb just changed their format, so now you have to double click for more.
Oh, right, it has the numbers.
Right, so what comes up is all the stuff he's done in the last couple of years, which is Star Trek Enterprise, and Law & Order SVU, and Diagnose Murder. He had a bigger arc
people out there
as
are
an
gonna be
actor.
like, oh, he's the robot from Holmes and Yo-Yo, which has been buried on IMDb, which John Schuck is probably very happy about.
Very possibly. Boy, did he work. Different Strokes, E/R, right? Not ER as we know it, but E/R, the other ER, also starring George Clooney. So yeah, the man has had a career, including, of course, Santa Bootcamp. Now, Santa Bootcamp is also written by Michael Murray, who's written a lot of these types of movies. Desperately Seeking Santa is one of his titles. I've actually not seen that one, but I've always wanted to just for the title, because, come on. And veteran, normally our lead in need of a lesson, Melissa Joan Hart, who... There's a lot to say about Melissa Joan Hart. Controversial figure, although seems to be a little more... middle ground these days, which makes it easier to enjoy her movies. Melissa Joan Hart is directing. This is not her first directorial movie on Lifetime. She did a few others, so quite the affair. And our lead is also somebody who you might recognize, Emily Kinney from The Walking Dead. Emily Kinney, whose name is Emily, which is my name, and she's playing a character named Emily, and it makes me very angry on all sides of that. So I just want to get that out there.
They gave her the Tony Danza treatment of they thought she might not respond to a character name.
Maybe that's it, because, there's a bit of a spaciness behind the eyes, so perhaps there was something going to that. Yeah, maybe her character was supposed to be something else. I don't know. We could. There's a lot to go into on this one. Again, your usual 90 minutes, but I don't know. This one felt both loaded and very light. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yes, that's it precisely.
Yeah.
And we'll explain what that means and why as we start to unpack it.
So let's go through the story of Santa Boot Camp. Would you like to walk through the plot a little bit?
So Emily
Not
is...
me.
Not you.
Right.
But our heroine in need of a lesson. I'm already getting ahead of myself. Excuse me.
That's okay. That's okay.
She's a career gal. Works as an event planner in a business that I assume is owned by her mother because she works with her mom. And it's the busiest time of the year. They established pretty early on. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. And she has clients. She has gigs going on. She has events that she is planning. When all of the sudden, out of the blue, a gigantic corporate client comes along, Mr. Mancini. Who I think he owns a mall.
I gathered
This is an alternative dimension where malls are still a thriving...
Malls in Los Angeles are treated as if they are small towns that also have magic.
Hires her for an event and expects nothing but the best because she was recommended by a close friend of Mr. Mancini, who we don't know who that is, but we know he expects big things from Emily. And two things we learn are that he's not running a charity. This is a corporate event. And
it's all about the bottom line.
It's go big or... He says go big or ho, 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 go home. Not go big or go ho, 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 home.
Sometimes they just don't have time to do a little bit of a script cleanup, It's a one take,
And Mr. Mancini is played by Patrick Cassidy. Again, you'd know him by sight, but I don't know that people are going to be starstruck by the appearance of Patrick Cassidy. And the other thing that's so important to him is he needs a magic, awesome, incredible, unbelievable Santa. That is like his top priority.
Not a Hollywood Santa.
Not a Hollywood Santa. He needs Miracle on 34th Street style Santa. Now, Emily, we've already established it's 2 weeks before Christmas. Where could she possibly find a Santa Claus this late in the game?
Well, I mean, first she has to, I assume, drop all of her other clients for this guy. Because while she's very successful... she's about to give 100% of her time to this party. So there's that.
Because it's a big opportunity.
Very big opportunity.
We've laid out the stakes with her mother, who we should note is she communicates with her mother using sign language. Her mom uses sign language back, which I found those scenes, I know we're not editorializing just yet, I found those scenes charming. Yeah. Could have been cloying, but I thought it was very effective.
No, a nice way to just throw in some more representation and diversity.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, it was nice. So presumably her mother or associates are going to take on other clients while she deals with this big, huge opportunity. But
there's no Santa.
Challenge here, where do you find the perfect Santa?
Well, I mean, first you go around and you lift up every Salvation Army bucket just to see if there's one hiding inside of it. When that doesn't pan out, you got to go to not where Santas are, but where Santas are made. Right, where Santas are grown and tended to, and where they work, and that is our titular
Santa Bootcamp, run by a woman named Belle. Now we see some glimpses of Belle early on in the opening credits, who's getting it together. And again, just because I do know a little bit about the world of Santa for Hire, Santa Camp is typically like an August, September sort of thing.
One would think.
Really unusual that this far into December, people are being trained to be Santa when they could have been hired as Santa.
You mean they don't graduate on Christmas Eve?
That is something that was unique to this film.
How about that? Yeah.
But for the sake of story, it's all happening in a condensed timeline. So in a nice bit of almost physical comedy, a flyer for Santa Boot Camp magically is whisked through the air and ends on Emily's shoe, and she tries shaking it off while another flyer lands on her face. And again, I think we are spared some physical comedy, and it's for the best.
Oh, I thought thought that was an attempt at physical comedy. I wouldn't say it was a good physical comedy, but
they knew when to stop.
Right. Well, they had to communicate. That was a plot point.
Yeah, it was a exposition coming into the life of a character. So she says, "Oh, look at this. They've got this Santa boot camp. It's so popular. They've expanded to Pasadena and LA, and it's a 4-day intensive workshop for Santas, Mrs. Claus, and Christmas performers. This is the place I should go to hire a Santa for this great big event."
Not a terrible idea, I suppose. I mean, if you have 4 days to spare. But of course, she's not thinking it's going to be 4 days. She's thinking she's going to go talk to the owner, say, who's the best person here? Okay, I'll take them. They're going to come.
She's going to cherry pick a Santa from this event to have the best. But it doesn't work that way when she gets to Santa camp. Right off the bat, everyone's confused. They think she's there as a student. She's not there as a student, which she tells 7 different people at
17 different times. Yes.
17 times over and over, padding the running time of the film. She meets a guy who's got a pickup truck. He's got
like a little bit of scruff, but not too much scruff.
Yeah. And he's got some fresh vegetables, and the two of them chat a little bit, but he's got to go. So he says, good luck with the class, because he thinks she's there as a student.
And she's like, I'm not here as a student. I'm looking for Santa. And then you take a drink because she's just said it 17 times.
Yeah. So she cuts to the front of the line and meets Belle, Rita Moreno, and explains, I've got a big important client because business is very important. Work is very important. Yeah. I'm going to cut to the head of the line. I've got a business card. And Rita Moreno kind of plays dumb, pronounces the word sweetheart in a strange accent that I couldn't quite place.
Why not?
And then the tram pulls up with a photo of Rita Moreno on it that says the finest Santa school in the country. And Rita Moreno is revealed to be the woman who runs this Santa boot camp after saying, I'm just a
goddess,
little old lady.
Yeah.
She goes inside and she sees there are DVDs of Jane Fonda workout style videos with Rita Moreno teaching you how to do Christmas workouts.
Which I would totally subscribe to.
I thought that was one of the best details in the film. There were CDs of her Christmas album. There are bobbleheads of Belle. With the face turned away from the camera, I guess, so it wasn't supposed to.
There's only so much time to make a custom bobblehead, and this was filmed in 16 days based on the research we did, so,
So she goes in, figuring if I go into the orientation, I'll be able to get some more information. But it's made very clear that they are not going to just give her a Santa. She has to enroll in this.
You have to earn your Santa by becoming a Santa yourself.
By doing the steps and learning and learning about yourself as well as learning how to be a Christmas performer. We meet some of the other characters who we just get little glimpses of people like Caroline, who runs HR at a big department store where she's going to be working with Santas for Hire, and she wants to learn more about she's kind of introduced. You're thinking maybe she's going to be like a romantic rival for Emily, but nothing ever comes of it.
No. She's just there because occasionally they need another person to do stuff.
Yeah.
There's
we meet some
Gino, the guy who wants to do it for his grandson, which is cute.
He's got the beard. Yeah. So you meet some of the other people who are genuinely there to be students, and then Belle just keeps giving Emily a hard time. She keeps dragging her in, and when she kind of just flops at an exercise where she has to play Mrs. Claus opposite Mr. Santa Claus, she brings Aiden.
Oh yeah.
She brings Aiden, the chef who was standing in the back.
What?
Brings him up.
What?
Says,
he's a chef. He's not a Santa Claus.
Student, I want to pair you with Emily, and I want the two of you to show me some romance between Mr. and Mrs. Claus. And he weaves an absolutely beautiful backstory just off the top of his head about their first date where they went on a picnic and they were outdoors and the hot chocolate froze, but they ate it as ice cream, and she fell asleep on his shoulder on the sleigh ride back. And that's the moment he knew she was the one. And there's a cutaway to all the women in the
who are just soaking wet
auditorium who are just besides themselves, because this guy, he's a charmer and a romantic, and boy, does that speak to Belle. Belle responds.
So Belle and Aiden have totally fucked, right? I mean, you got that. You got that, didn't you?
Oh,
come on.
Really?
I felt the energy and chemistry between Rita Moreno and this young pretty boy. And maybe John Chuck, maybe he watched, maybe he participated. I don't know.
Well, he's always up at his workshop. We learned 20 minutes into the movie that Belle's husband is never around for Santa Boot Camp because he's busy up at his workshop, which is the first very obvious clue. I mean, they pretty much come out and tell you. He's Santa Claus.
What?
She's Mrs. Claus. Yes. You know, like the Angela Lansbury movie, Mrs. Santa Claus.
In my mind, because they never full out say it, I kind of rewrote the ending that Belle is actually Santa and Mr. Claus is actually Mrs. Claus, if that makes sense.
The way they set up the chairs in the auditorium, Belle, Rita Moreno, is center in the biggest chair with her husband Chris to the side. So she is not playing second fiddle to him.
Right. She is
not even on equal footing. She is
well above.
The superior magical
she
being.
has an Emmy, an Oscar, a Tony, and a Grammy. Yeah. And also the title of actual Santa Claus in my mind. Now, I feel like that's one thing that is lacking in this movie because it could have just done that. It could have at the end had her wink and say oh yeah, he's actually, he makes me cocoa or something. Right. And something where she whips the reindeer in the end. They could have just given you that one extra step of a bit of, forward thinking, gender swapping. But we understand it.
Melissa
it is
Joan Hart cut that stuff out.
Oh,
she wanted a traditional.
Yep.
Wanted traditional Santa Claus Mrs. Claus relationship.
Yeah.
Right. There's that Michael Caine movie with Ben Kingsley called Without a Clue that reveals that Sherlock Holmes is a big dum-dum, but Watson
is the
does
brains
all the
behind it. We just watched that last week, by the way.
You're kidding me?
Yeah, it's one of my husband's favorites, and randomly we decided to sit down. It's a delight.
Fun twist.
Very
on the Sherlock
delightful
Holmes
movie.
So they could have totally done that here with Mrs. Claus being the true magic behind Christmas.
And she is. The movie just doesn't say it, right? Because she says the whole time, oh, I'm planning a surprise for you. I'll give you something. And at the end, it's clear that she makes it snow, and she does that for Emily, and she's doing that. John Chuck's not doing that. John Chuck's just there for the ride. Yeah.
So Emily gets roped into the 4-day intensive Santa boot camp. The one thing is I had a hard time following the passage of time in this movie because
they could have said day 1, day 2, give a little advent calendar.
Title cards.
Yeah.
Oh, advent calendar. There were so many ways you could have done it. It also is confusing that when you enroll in Santa camp, you wear a T-shirt that says Santa boot camp and you wear camo pants. So every day they're wearing the same clothes.
Thing.
So it's very difficult to distinguish the passage of time, which maybe was by design so that they had a little freedom of swapping around the order of scenes. Yeah. But we know that it's going to be for 4 days and that Christmas is in about 2 weeks. So after the 4-day intensive workshop is done, then they have 5 days to complete what is their senior project?
Sacraments.
Field work.
Yes. Internships. Girl Scout badges. Essentially, they have to prove themselves in the real world of Santaing, which I guess is all in all a good thing. It just seems I don't know. I freak out if I have to take a sick day. I just can't imagine anybody in this day and age being able to say, okay, yes, I will give up 9 days that are not vacation days in order to do this thing. It just seems, I don't know where this time comes from, is all.
And the film kind of has it both ways because it establishes early on that event planning will take over your life. And
right.
I'm sure,
it's a very intense career.
I'm sure they're... You know the way certain jobs like advertising executive or journalist is portrayed in enough films that I feel like event planner is more often than not, it's a woman in the film. Yeah. It's scripted as women who are event planners where they have to have they're managing people, they have clients, but they have staff, they have an attention to detail, they have crazy demands being placed on them, but somehow they get it done.
They get it all done, and they have time to fall in love. What do you know?
And they have, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But what's striking about this is, it's been established that this is a very intense career, but she's going to take 4 to 9 days devoted to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty small class. There's not a lot of people enrolled in the course with her.
Because people have jobs, presumably.
Right. And the middle stuff is just like slowly. How detailed do you want to get into our summary here?
I mean, that's most of it, right?
Yeah.
So her and Aiden fall. Surprise, surprise. Her and the cook, the chef, have a lot in common. I guess she helps him find a Christmas tree because, again, it's part of the bonding ritual in these movies.
I mean, again, the film totally has it both ways, where she has such a love and deep appreciation of Christmas and the magic of Christmas, but she also thinks work is important. And those two things just don't go together.
But very,
Something's gotta go.
she twists that around pretty quickly. Like, she has one interaction with a kid that can't go to this Christmas party that she's planning because it's only for the rich people. And she's like, I think that's wrong. I'm going to stand up to the man who hired me 2 days ago and who I was terrified of and tell him how I'm going to do his party differently. So there's that drama doesn't go far. And then the other drama that... This is where I think you really do feel like, oh yeah, they had this movie filmed and it was only like 72 minutes, so we need something else. Okay, there's minor tension because Aiden has a job offer in New York City, which within one scene he decides not to take. So they're good, I guess, and there's a party, everything goes perfectly. It's another really low stakes Christmas movie, which... these aren't ever meant to be overly dramatic movies that really challenge you. Right. But I feel like a lot of them the last couple of years, and maybe it's COVID, maybe it's the kind of general sentiment of movies that were meant to be comforting are now even more afraid of not being completely soft and comforting, that they don't want in any way to give you anything to worry about. And I remember,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Last year, doing one movie that was, it was a sequel to a movie from before. It was The 9 Kittens of Christmas. And the movie starts, and the couple from the movie a couple years earlier have broken up. And so ultimately, in the sequel, they get back together. But it was hysterical to read reviews of that movie because people were so pissed off that this movie would dare presume that the couple you saw fall in love a few years earlier aren't together anymore. And, what a dumb sentiment at the same time. If this is your audience is the people that just want happy, happy, fuzzy, fuzzy for 90 minutes, I guess you write it towards that. So there's really... zero conflict at all. The minor conflict that comes up is very quickly before the next commercial break squashed and everybody's happy and falling in love again. So, yeah. Because that aside, there's things about this that were kind of charming.
There are some details that usually they were Rita Moreno or Rita Moreno adjacent. Yeah. But just as far as some of the tensions go, what I found so interesting, and I feel like you can speak to this, is I've seen other films where someone is like a corporate lawyer who is doing bad work and they have to turn their back on that world, sometimes even quit the job or leave the company. Whereas in our male and female leads are small business people. Yeah. And I think that kind of has the best of both worlds, where they can have career ambitions and work is important because they're not working for a big evil multinational conglomerate. They are trying to make their way in the world and do it their way.
And do it better. And make the world better while they're doing it.
Make people happy.
Yeah. And that's been the big disappointment I think I've had this year with a lot of these movies, is that they've all been really reluctant to start in a mean place and then get soft. And for years, that's what we had. We had the driven career woman who has a tight bun and always has a cell phone glued to her head, but by the end of the movie is wearing a soft sweater and has her hair down and is embracing Christmas. And there was something always like really fun about just how ridiculous that path was. And most of the ones I've watched this year, and some of them have been decent movies in different ways, but none of them made this year are starting with Cruella de Vil turning into Belle of Beauty and the Beast, right? They're all starting with, career-minded Belle, who then gets, even softened by the end. And I just miss that, like, that ridiculous judgment of career women, maybe?
But Ebenezer Scrooge, I mean,
Completely.
it's so steeped in history with Christmas stories that it's about capitalism and work and your identity and your cruelty and learning that there's more to life than that. So it feels like it's this nicer version of compassionate capitalism of people who run small businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. How dare you?
As long as you do it the right way. And even if there's somebody in the way of that, all they need is you to talk about the beauty of Christmas, and they'll fold, and then they'll support you, which is what happens here with the quote-unquote villain. I don't think
he wasn't. He had no hard edges to be a villain. He was won over so quickly.
But in the introduction makes it seem like he's going to be a scary dude. And I was excited.
Absolutely are led to believe that. And he has people who are tiptoeing around him. He has underlings who are afraid of him. He's just fired somebody who was planning his party. Yeah. And then very quickly.
So let's go then lead into the tropes we look for. Because number one is the lead in need of a lesson. And it's Emily, and Emily kind of learns a lesson, but it's a really quick one, right?
Yeah.
And just in terms of kind of character building, like sometimes if even if they're not then like the cruel career woman, then give them something to go with. And the big sadness of this character at the very beginning is her sitting down and telling her Christmas story and why like Christmas sometimes is really hard for her. And like you're thinking like, oh, Dad died on Christmas, right? That's what we're gonna get. And instead it's like, no, I just always wanted a white Christmas and I never got one. Like, if that's your biggest problem, lady, it is going to be hard for me to care about your journey in this movie. But then we move on to our setting, which is almost always a big bad city, a charming small town, or a magical winter wonderland. And I'm going to say we kind of get all three mashed together.
Absolutely. It's a nesting doll.
Yes, yes.
Within the big bad city of Los Angeles, there is a charming small town of...
the block we're on in Los Angeles.
Right. And then in that, they rented out a house to have this, or this estate, this campgrounds to have Santa Bootcamp, which is a magical place.
And also apparently like where they were staying, and like that's probably the cafeteria
home.
Was there.
So
no, I meant the cast of the movie. The cast and crew,
kidding,
like
really?
I think a lot of the stuff was just this house is like somebody's mansion that they rent out for things, and I think it was like the entire movie was I don't know that people actually slept there, but it seemed as though like 95% of the movie was filmed in this space.
Yeah.
So they stretched that dollar. I gotta respect it.
Definitely. Wow.
Let's see now. Number 3 is our bland love interest. And again, like, he's not a poor little rich boy. He's not a widowed dad. He's kind of just... How would you describe this guy?
Well, they go out of their way a couple of times to talk about him as a Southern boy, even though there is no...
Well, and what's funny, the actor, like, he's been in dozens of these, and several of the ones that have, like, a Southern thing in the title, like Christmas in Mississippi, like, those kinds of things. So I'm guessing the actor himself probably is from somewhere in the South.
Well, he was on... I guess he was a competitor on, like, Nashville Star or some kind of country music show. So he brings that baggage with him, but there is nothing about it that feels distinctly Southern. It's not like a Matthew McConaughey kind of drawl.
If only.
So yeah, he drives a truck. He works with food.
That's right. He doesn't like molecular gastronomy.
No.
He wants real food.
And when we see him in the beginning wearing the white smock and the chef's hat, the camera is framed in such a way to see that he's wearing blue jeans with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's a blue jeans.
That's right.
Pickup truck guy at heart.
And they kind of try, I would say, harder in this movie than almost any of the Hallmark Lifetime movies I've seen to create some actual sexual energy between the leads. Because there is a scene about halfway through the movie when the two characters have like... Clearly they're into each other, which a lot of times that doesn't happen so early. Usually it's like the last, we gotta go, we have 2 minutes left. Oh, right, kiss. Okay, goodbye. But in this case, it's like, no, they're clearly into each other and getting more into each other. And there's a scene where, I can't remember why they're at this house in the middle of the night, but they are. and he's making bread and doing like the kneading thing, and it turns into like the ghost. Like you want Unchained Melody to play,
the thing,
right?
He's like, "Let me show you how to do it," and you think
Belle loves when I do this.
They will stand side by side and cook. He's like, "Let me show you how to do it." Stands behind her like the creepy golf pro teaching a nubile co-ed how to putt a golf ball.
He's like, "Yeah, put your hands like this."
Just wraps his arms around her as they're kneading.
Yeah,
and he describes it.
Yes,
and it goes
vividly.
on and on.
Yeah, like you don't get those. Like that is as pornographic as you will find in these movies.
Yeah, their hands are interlaced.
Yeah, like and Emily freaks out. She's kind of like, I gotta go. Like, and like I'm sitting there as an Emily thinking, like, you're right, you do. It's way too early in the movie to get it on. You can't do this. So yeah, like I guess and I wonder whose decision that was. Like, was that Melissa Joan Hart being like, no, you guys are gonna like. I need the sex. Like, you can't do that in these movies, but she kind of does.
Stands behind her.
Do you think Melissa Joan Hart at one point was like, no, Emily Kinney, the actress, like, let me show you. Here, Nashville star. Okay, pretend I'm Emily. Like, do you think she was into it? Or vice versa, you know?
It's very much on the commentary track of The Fly, the Cronenberg movie. He talks about how he and Jeff Goldblum started working out together. And there's this idea of like the director and the lead, you know, the lead actor being like, well, you're an avatar for me. I'm telling a story and you're basically a stand-in for me. And Emily is it's Melissa Joan Hart.
Yeah.
It's just like a younger,
very blonde,
Melissa Joan Hart, very blonde, just a similar complexion. Dials down the like not as doesn't have all the like comedic characteristics and like the things you enjoy about a Melissa Joan Hart performance. It's a watered down watered down version of it, but she is so much a stand-in for Melissa Joan Hart. So I could imagine any of these scenes, Melissa Joan Hart saying, "You want to do it like this," and everyone's like, "Oh, that was brilliant! You know, you should just be playing
in
this
movie,
I don't know
Melissa
why."
Joan Hart.
Yeah.
Yep. Fascinating. So number 4 is our montage. I don't know. Did you see any montages in this movie?
There had to have been some.
Oh yeah, there's a few.
Stood out to me
because they're not good montages. That's the problem.
No.
There's like a couple of different ones when they're showing Santa Camp doing different assignments. Like they have to go into town and like interact with children. And there's kind of like a slow motion walk. And then it's them playing with various children to the sound of Christmas carols. Then there's like a quick scene and then the exact same thing. Only now they're in a department store interacting with children.
Yes.
There's a tree auction that kind of just... I guess is a montage because it feels like they're just, I don't know, like, this scene isn't working.
But
Let's
there
cut
aren't
it
enough things to happen to cut away to count as a montage. It's very weird. That's why I don't consider these montages.
Yeah.
They are half-ass montages.
Yep.
And then the scenes that come before it and after reinforce all of the information. So it's kind of like reiterated B-roll, not so much a montage of like, oh, well, here's a deleted scene that didn't make it into the movie that they're recycling into a montage. It's more of just, it's repeating itself.
Right. And a lot of times I think it really is the running time. They're looking at it saying like, well, we need another 35 seconds here. What do we got? Okay, well, we have quick, dig up the Silent Night cover and put it right here and we'll cut this and this together and damn, we got it. So yeah, like and the same thing with like the party. There's a couple of shots of the party, but it's not. I don't know. It didn't look
just a
like
couple
a
of shots.
party.
Nothing big.
I know.
Do you know what I thought was a weird choice in the montage in the store is Mrs. Claus holds court with a group of children and she's telling the story of the 3 little pigs, and it's like, I guess that is the version of public domain storybook.
Is that not what you would do at Christmas time? Sit around the tree and hear the story of...
I guess I assumed if she was going to do story time, it would be the Christmas mitten. It would tie
the
back to the
Nutcracker, which is public
ways.
Domain. Yeah.
Yeah, but instead she told the story of the 3 little pigs. Unless as the story unfolded, maybe it was the 3 little pigs
were
at
decorating.
Christmas.
Maybe instead of blowing down the house, it was blowing down the inflatable lawn ornaments. Who can say?
Maybe.
Yeah. Now, number 5, and again, this is where sometimes you see the difference between, like, how hard is a movie going to go? Because we have the dead parents / dead wife. And now, in this case, do we have any dead parents?
We hear about when our dad was still with us,
Okay,
which
I
took
that.
to believe this is when he was alive, not before he went to Mexico with his teaching assistant.
Right, for a pack of cigarettes
He's
and
no
never came
longer
back.
with us.
Yeah, I didn't even catch. I was wondering. I'm like, they have to say something about the dad, but because instead, what I got was at least 2 dead grandparents. Because Aiden talks a lot about his I think it was his grandpa who like taught him how to cook, and then Emily, I forget at what point, but she has a whole thing about her dead grandma. So it seemed like they were like doing that thing where again it's like, oh no, we don't want to get too real. So grandparents, like it's just,
and if anything, Aiden said he wants to have a small down home restaurant where he's gonna make the fried chicken that his grandfather taught him to make, and he's gonna use the skillet that his grandfather gave him. So you've got multiple dead grandpas.
Lots of dead grandpas. Assuming, I mean, for all we know, the great grandpa is still kicking around.
My dead grandpa, he's got a dead grandpa too.
And that dead grandpa, he had a skillet. He died on this skillet.
That skillet's probably disgusting, right?
Well, like that's the whole thing about cast iron skillets is that they're supposed to get better with age because they get seasoned, right? So everything you cook on the skillet kind of like goes into it. Yeah. I really want to believe part of this family's ritual is that when Grandpa dies, he is then cooked on that skillet. And that becomes that's when it's blessed, and that's when you could, like, you have to cook your first meal. It has to be the ancestor who died on that skillet. Otherwise, you break the curse. Yeah, or the blessing, whatever it is. And then you don't look as good in blue jeans. That's what I'm going to say happens. No, number 6 is our sassy sidekick. I think you have some options. I feel like there is one that stands out.
There's one absolutely that is our comic relief standout who doesn't steal the movie, but certainly brings a lot to her scenes and brings some color and light to it, which I really appreciated.
Yes. So that
What's
is
her name?
Marissa Jarrett Winokur, who everybody knows as the original Tracy Turnbold in Hairspray, the Broadway musical. Patty is her character's name. And she is, I guess, like, what would you call her? The head elf?
I guess, We're the drill sergeant of the boot camp. If you're going to keep with the boot camp scenario.
Yeah, I like it.
She's got a whistle that she blows. She has everybody march. She gives them assignments. She
big old hair.
Penalizes big old hair. Yep. Lots of bright, loud Christmassy outfits. Yeah. And there's a pretty funny joke in the movie about somebody mentions something about, well, what if a kid complains about an ugly Christmas sweater? And they cut to her. She says, there's no such thing as an ugly Christmas sweater. That was a myth created by the media. And she's wearing a hideous Christmas sweater. Yep.
And we finally get good, big, dangly earrings that get bigger as the movie goes on, which I appreciate. So, like, that's what I look for in a sassy sidekick. I look for high energy. I look for and I don't know if Marissa Jarrett Winokur has ever been the lead in any of these movies, but like you want that. Like you want too much of that in one movie just to see where it goes when you do that. Yeah. But yeah, so a nice fun, and you can tell that this actress is working really hard. One of the things there's an article that if anybody saw on Facebook I put up, it's from the website Vulture, where somebody like basically served as an extra on this movie and wrote about what it was like to film. And they mention one of the first things they talk about is how Marissa Jarrett Winokur does a scene, and then Melissa Joan Hart says cut and says to her, "Okay, that's great. Can I get it at 75%?" And Marissa Jarrett Winokur immediately was like, "Yep, okay, got it," and does it at 75% of her energy from the last one. And like I love when that's like a very theater person who understands exactly when to expound the energy and when to pull back. So. Fun here.
It's a game I love to play when you see films based on musicals and you're like, okay, spot which actor was in the Broadway show.
Oh, yes.
Because their energy is very different from the film actors who are playing things at 25%. Yeah. And they're coming out projecting like they are on a Broadway stage.
A lot of times it's all about the eyebrows. In Les Mis, the Hugh Jackman Les Mis from a couple of years ago, Eponine, beautiful singer. I'm sure she's a great stage actress. Watch her eyebrows in that movie. It's almost Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. Like, they are doing so much work. And of course they are, because on stage you are doing
You
that
have
to the people in the
to
mezzanine.
Give it 120%.
So, yes.
I was thinking of in the first film version of The Wiz, the Cowardly Lion
Yes.
is going so big, so nonstop,
Yep.
and it's like, we get it. You were in the Broadway. So yeah, I totally believe that she brings some of that Broadway energy that Melissa Joan Hart has to then wrangle in.
Yes, yes. Now, number 7 is our evil woman or our villain. Villain is often an evil woman. Can an alternative be the male boss who is obsessed with profit margin?
We get a little bit of that with the client,
We
who
were
we
supposed to
think,
get it.
yeah, you think he's going to be about the bottom line and that everything has to be excellent and he's not running a charity. But when she says this would be really good for community building, he's like, all right, send me a proposal. This could be great. Like he's totally open to it. And then the potential evil woman we mentioned earlier is Caroline is taking the course. She's taking boot camp and she's with HR. I consider HR pretty corporate. And she seemed like she could have been a rival, or she could have been like bringing a corporate point of view to like, well, in my department store, we're not going to have time for this nonsense. Never goes anywhere. Never develops.
No.
So,
and I think part of it too is that whether you have an evil woman depends on what type of female lead you have. If your female lead starts as the evil woman, starts as the corporate villain, then you don't need the evil woman. If your female lead starts as like the doe-eyed, I love Christmas and want to bring it to other people, that's when maybe you'll have that. And here you have that cross in the middle, because Emily is a career woman, but very quickly softened by like, oh no, but I love Christmas. So you don't, there's no reason to have that other voice, because Emily's voice is so muddled anyway. So
if you were to look at two pie charts or two graphs, bar graphs of Cozy Cardigan Christmas movies directed by men versus directed by women, do one of those charts feature more evil women? Are women more likely to be like, I want an interesting character who's really like aggressive and powerful, or are men gonna have a misogynistic bent of presenting a particular type of, oh wow, she wants a career and family, what an evil woman?
That is an excellent question. I don't have the data to give you a full answer. Part of it too is one of those things that you'd have to look at timelines, because you didn't have women, not that you didn't have women directing, but until recent years, it was so, like everything in Hollywood, so still male tilted, to where almost everybody behind the camera was still a man. That changed. Hallmark has always been the flip of that. At one point, Hallmark actively had, I think it was like more female directed films than any other network. So yeah, right? Progress in some way.
In some way. It's in the movies themselves. Right?
Pretty much, yeah. And the ones I've seen, I haven't seen enough to really be able to note that. And it's something I always look for, so I know I would know if it was there. So I would say so far, not much of a difference, but reevaluate in like 5 years, kind of like the Sight and Sound poll, right? They do it every 10 years. Let's do it every 5 years for Cozy Cardigan Christmas and see how things fall. Yeah. Put it on the calendar right now. Okay, number 8 is slapstick. Not much. We mentioned the flyers on the face in the very beginning. There's like one scene that goes on for a while that I was confused by. I guess the joke is that Emily can't walk in elf shoes.
It's her tights. She's
tights.
tugging at her tights, and it makes it impossible for her to move around in her elf green tights.
Like, tights aren't hard. Tights don't do, like, a skirt would do that to you, but tights are just tights. Like, they're stockings. They don't really constrain your movement much. It just suddenly felt like Emily was an alien who didn't have feet, like she was a Little Mermaid who was just walking for the first time type thing. Because I did not understand what the humor was in that scene, aside from she couldn't do it. But
I just recently rewatched an episode of the original Addams Family, and I forgot that when Morticia walks, it's just these little baby steps. Yeah. I'm holding up to my.
I see the little fingers walking. Everybody, take your 2 fingers, put them together, and then just move the tips of them. Because that's what happens when you wear, like, I forget the name. I guess it's a mermaid silhouette, right? Where it goes all the way to your little feetsies, and all you can move are your feetsies.
Yep. So it reminded me of that, just her inability to get around in those green tights.
In those tights, which I'm sure Melissa Joan Hart has worn and knows that no tight is going to do that to you. But anyway, we need to move to number 9 because our sage old person is whoa. I have never coveted an outfit or wardrobe in general more than I did with Rita Moreno in this movie.
Okay, if you had to pick one, if you were going to get one.
Okay. I'm going to cheat because what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one outfit and then I'm going to steal one accessory. Yes, it is by far the red sequined jumpsuit. Not jumpsuit, but tracksuit, right? You can tell it's comfortable. It goes from the ankles to the neck.
Looks great.
Oh my God, she looks amazing. You can tell that she can move really freely in it. You get the feeling that Rita Moreno woke up in the morning in that outfit and did yoga, and it looks fabulous. But I would pair that with the sparkly hat that she wears later in the movie.
The sparkly hat is great, and I loved the turban. I feel like
was pretty great.
It's very hard to have a character wear a turban that it doesn't what's going on with that turban?
Yeah.
No, it works. You know what, Rita Moreno?
Yeah.
She could have made any of those outfits look great.
I mean, there are basically 3 women I think of when I think, who could pull off a turban? Rita Moreno, Cheetah Rivera, and Eartha Kitt. Those are the 3 names that I think of as, put them in turbans. And it makes sense. They're all of that same ilk.
I know I've seen Madeline Kahn in a turban a few times.
She could do too. Yeah.
And she looked great. Which it seems like it would be a really hard thing to do, but nails it.
You know what else is really hard to do? Play a weird, sexy Santa role-playing thing where you're a little girl and your husband is Santa, and it was. Do you remember the scene early on? They're doing a thing where they're like, all right, play acting improv.
Wants a kitten.
Yeah.
And you think, oh wait, is she not going to ask for a kitten? Because so far she hasn't mentioned it. And it's all a ramp up to wanting a Siamese kitten.
Yeah.
It's very detailed. Some of the exercises they do at Santa Camp, the same way Aiden has this whole vivid description of what Mr. and Mrs. Claus's first date was. When Mrs. Claus, or when Belle is just supposed to ask Chris about wanting a kitten for Christmas, she just delivers this beautifully constructed, flowery backstory that is riveting.
Yeah. I also really wished, because they were, trying to throw Santas off, right? So, Santa, I want a car. Santa, I want a horse. Didn't you want one of them to say, Santa, I want my father back from the dead? Is that not where your brain goes there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Rita Moreno is a legend. She's having fun in this movie. She is not phoning anything in. She apparently learned how to drive that golf cart. And actually drove it in some of those scenes and apparently hated it. The quote in that article is, "I'm not thrilled about driving that fucking thing," she told the reporter, which I love to imagine Rita Moreno doing. She's
I just want to, by comparison, yes, we know Rita Moreno is going to be great in this. That should surprise no one. But what I just want to point out is, if you've seen some of these films, kind of like if you're watching an asylum movie where they have one name actor, it's like, oh, they got Lorenzo Lamas. I watched one a while back where Howard Hessman was in it.
Nice.
But he was the most I think of Howard Hessman as somebody who's just got a real sparkle in his eye, really charming and funny and unique. It was the most dead-eyed performance I'd ever seen him do. So sometimes going into this type of a film, not even necessarily a Christmas movie, but just a late in their career, and they're brought in for some low budget
for
film.
the day. They know it's not going to be quality. Yeah,
you never know what you're going to get, and you might get a dead-eyed Howard Hessman performance. Right. We got the complete opposite.
Totally.
We got just a woman who's at the top of her game and does not phone it in, even if it's a Melissa Joan Hart Lifetime Christmas movie. She is just effervescent and magical.
She's like being my Clancy Brown in this movie, right? Clancy Brown is in so many terrible movies, and he never once is anything but giving 110% in them. And that's the vibe here. She's having fun. She has a spin to this character. She has clearly come in thinking, I know who Belle is. I've decided Belle and Belle has had sex with this young chef. Yep. Belle is into this, but not into that. She has a vision and she goes with it. And I think she elevates everybody around her. Like, you could tell everybody else is like, oh my God, I'm in a movie with Rita Moreno. And, like, she's looking me in the eye and doing a scene with me. And it's lovely to see.
And throughout the movie, she says, oh, that would be too easy. She frequently has things go on the scenic route in order to, like, make it a more satisfying lesson, akin to, like, wax the car, paint the fence. Hey, you learned karate. You know, she's very wise. She's very clever. She's very playful. Oh, yeah. And I wanted to look at a detail early in the film. So after I watched it once, I was watching the beginning again, and I had not been looking for this. In the very opening scene, a bunch of articles of clothes go by on a rack, and you see the Mrs. Santa Claus suit, and it's got Emily's tag on it.
Oh.
So it was predestined. Like, she was 10 steps ahead of every other character in the movie.
She is Santa Claus.
That is a detail that you don't get on the first viewing.
And rarely does any of these movies necessarily warrant a second viewing. So, hey, way to go, Melissa Joan Hart. Yeah. Now, number 10 is our Santa Claus. We have said, sure, John Chuck, but actually Rita Moreno, right? Come on. Yes. Come on. Yes. Yeah.
I also just want to point out now, there's a detail, again, this is the kind of thing like you pick up the second time watching it. At one point, Santa Claus says, look at Belle's hands. And we've established that they're married. And they've been married for what they say, it feels like an eternity, like thousands forever. Of years. You know, they're constantly talking about how they're these immortals. He's like, look at her hands. And she holds up her left hand. What do you notice? No wedding ring. We decided when we got married, no wedding rings. But I love the detail that, like, well, they don't wear the wedding rings because they're free to fuck young
Exactly. Death. Oh, yeah. It's just easier this way. It just takes the conversation out of the mix. Oh, yeah. No, they both can get it. I guarantee it. And it's probably
I like the idea that Aiden has had sex with all of the principal characters.
Oh, yeah. Definitely with Patty. 100%. Yeah. All right. So now we go to the bonus round. First thing is our public domain holiday songs. This one does a thing where they actually have a lot of, like, those original but not known for a reason
just naming
songs.
Things.
The naming Christmas thing song.
Yeah, talking about gingerbread houses and
icicles and ice skating. Yep. And there's like 3 of them in this movie, and I don't know why. Like, but I prefer that to just the same old cover of Jingle Bells every time. And we do get a sexy version of "Oh Christmas Tree," I think. Is like slowed down and kind of stretched out and done in a way where you know that, again, that has been used for the different orgies happening at this house. Let's see. Number 2, Secret Family Recipe.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. I mean,
well,
multiple.
There were 2.
Yeah.
Because there was the German cake, fruit cake.
Chocolate and cherry fruit cake.
That she never did learn how to make.
No.
Which is never paid off in any way.
Nope.
She does not open a book in her house and find an envelope that falls out.
The sprinkle sound effect as it falls out. Yeah.
Nothing like that. It never pays off. No. And then Aiden wants to open a down-home restaurant.
Down-home.
Serves his family's fried chicken. Mm-hmm. And it's the contrast that comes up a lot is go big or go home. But home is presented time and again as a really good place to go. So going home is not a bad thing. Home is where the heart is.
Of course. It's where that Dr. Pepper barbecue sauce is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, our small business in danger, again, we kind of think that this party planning company, like, they have to make this one work. And you're thinking, like, oh, otherwise, Mom and Emily are out in the streets. But no, it doesn't really go anywhere. And even the whole, like, I don't know, at one point I thought, like, oh, the Santa school's going to be in danger. But no, it's not. It's so not enough of that,
Well, the third one is a hypothetical business that doesn't exist yet, which is Aiden wants to open a restaurant, but he might go take a job in New York City.
Big bad New York City. Whew. There's so much molecular gastronomy in New York City. That would just be just no.
It is very funny that Los Angeles positions itself as the small town compared to big bad New York City.
Yes. Yeah. When I think of a place where everybody knows your name and you can walk down the street and get a nice cup of coffee, I definitely think of Los Angeles. Product placement. So there is one, and it's a weird one. I don't know if you caught anything. You mentioned it earlier. What do they wear? What are the campers, the boot, what do you call them? Boot campers? What are they wearing? What is their
pants.
And
and a T-shirt that says
Okay.
Santa Bootcamp.
Not just that the T-shirt says Santa Bootcamp. If you watch this on Lifetime, I will send a picture. I'll put it up on the Instagram.
Please.
There is one moment where I think it might even be Rita Moreno is wearing the shirt, and the shirt has that red circular ornament, right? It's just a Christmas ornament. It's a very generic image, but you know what else that image is? That image is used for the It's a Wonderful Lifetime advertising. Anytime you look at like Lifetime, anytime you're watching a Lifetime Christmas movie, in the bottom corner of the screen for about half the movie is going to be that little icon that says It's a Wonderful Lifetime, and usually that's where like throughout the movie the advertisement for the next movie will come up and so on. But it
synergy.
Is completely just that red ornament tilted to the side. And there was a moment that felt like that Office episode where everybody is watching the DVD screen where the DVD icon is moving across the TV and they're waiting for it to land in the corner because something magical happens. I was sitting there watching because this ball on her sweater is coming so close to landing over the corner icon on the screen. I'm like, what happens when that, like, is that an Easter egg? Like, is my TV going to blow up? Is that like Halloween 3 masks?
It's going to show Indiana Jones where the Well of Souls is.
No! Who knows? Something terrible or wonderful was going to happen at that point. It doesn't quite, but like it was there. It was definitely there, and I bet I didn't look. I guarantee you can buy those shirts on Lifetime's website if you look for them.
100%.
Yeah, but it was an exciting one in terms of like how they managed to work that in. Now, number 5 is our cloying child. We do have children in this movie. We don't always have kids in these movies because it's more expensive to have to deal with a kid for a day. We have a little scene with a girl who is signing and connects with Emily because Emily also knows how to sign. That's cute, I guess.
But I think what's amazing is it sidesteps the challenge of children's delivery where it's overly cute or it's whiny or it's demanding, it's off-putting in some way. So you have a child who's having a meaningful dialogue with our main character, but we never hear the character's voice. I think that
might be the trick of these movies. I wonder if more movies will start doing that with their child actors.
Well, Logan, the Marvel movie Logan has a young girl in it who doesn't speak, and I think the last in the most recent trilogy of Planet of the Apes movies, there was a young girl who didn't speak. You're right. And I was like, I do not like this trend of female characters who have no voice.
Don't have voice, yeah.
But I think in this case, the benefit of it is you don't get, I wish you were the real Mrs. Santa.
I want to go to the party.
Yeah.
Well,
so
interesting point. We'll have to see how that follows up in future movies. Character with a holiday themed name. I mean, we have Belle, we have Chris, as in Kris Kringle, obviously. We have a character named Emily, which again annoys me because it just makes my life hard. You probably go through that far often than I do because Kevin's an even more common name in movies, but just it's weird for me to have to say the name Emily out loud so many times. Finding the perfect tree.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the whole plot point.
It is.
Now, have you ever seen a Christmas tree auction? We should tell everybody they don't just go to buy a tree; they go to a Christmas tree auction. So everyone has to be there at the same time. Trees are brought up. There is an abundance of trees at this tree lot. They are tagged, so they have some kind of price on them because he says something about her having champagne tastes. But then you don't buy the tree in a traditional manner because they're being auctioned by an auctioneer.
And they don't, if it was a fundraiser, it would have made sense, right? If it was something of like, oh, this is what we do this instead to raise money for something. But yeah, it seems like a very inefficient way to buy a tree because that just takes more time. Auctioneers talk fast, but still, there's 30 other people looking to buy that tree. And they kind of commit a sin, which to me, if you're going to do a sort of montage to a tree hunting, why would you not use "Oh Christmas Tree" as the song for that? Instead, they use, I think, "Joy to the World." So, again. No ridiculously elaborate holiday cocktails or beverages that I caught, but we do need to talk about that empty coffee cup acting.
Yeah.
Hoo boy. The Oscar goes to the tree auction. They say, you want some hot cocoa? Yes. And they both get a cup. At first,
I thought he's handing her an empty cup,
and
as
they're going
if
to go
you,
and
as if
pour
you and I
it,
were going
right?
to go to a water cooler and
I
fill
thought the
that
same.
cup.
But they never go to a
no.
water cooler. They stand there and hold these cups and toast with these cups. And there is just, I mean, it felt like, at one point I'm like, maybe this was the rehearsal and they just forgot to actually film it with any weight to the cups whatsoever. It was one of the most egregious, offensive, empty coffee cup acting I have seen in these movies. And that is saying something.
Yeah.
Okay, and then actors trying hard to not actually eat food on camera. I know this is something near and dear to your heart of having to film a scene and have to remember we don't actually eat it because I might have to do this for 7 hours if they didn't get the right shot. I'm just going to say, I am pretty sure that Rita Moreno and John Chuck drank like 7 bottles of wine. I don't think Melissa Joan Hart standing there like, no, for continuity, I can't have you drink out of the glass. Oh, okay, I'll just drink the whole glass and then you can refill it then. How's that? I really think they were like going for it on that wine. And bless them for it. Yeah. No Canadianisms, because this obviously was not filmed in Canada. It was filmed in Tennessee, which gets them around the warm weather watch.
It had something in the closing credits about Connecticut Film Commission. Or maybe that's just the name of the company.
Yeah, or maybe some interiors, but the main set was definitely Nashville.
Yeah, I'm sure the Vulture article must get into that.
So they definitely, like, again, sometimes I appreciate when they just all out say, oh no, we're not in a place where it's going to snow. So it's okay if our characters are on t-shirts. Justify it. It goes back to when I was in high school, we made a zombie movie for our American history class, and I came up with what I thought was a brilliant idea, which was we're going to set the movie in Alaska because then the lights are always on in Alaska. Right? Because we knew with our little old 90s camera we couldn't do night shots, so it justifies why you weren't making a horror movie at night. So, same idea. So that was Santa Bootcamp. Kevin, what did you think of Santa Bootcamp? You've watched some of these movies. Where does it fall for you?
Even though we just checked off so many boxes on the checklist, it strangely doesn't feel as by the book and paint by numbers. I think just because of the premise of a Santa boot camp has, to the best of my knowledge, has never been used. And right now, if you go to HBO Max, you can see Santa Camp, an actual documentary about one of these camps that takes place in September in New Hampshire. And people come from all over the place to go to these things. The use of the camp makes it feel unique and feel different from all the other movies I've seen that kind of fall into these formulas. So it did feel a little bit different.
Yeah, the more kind of we talk through it and go through some of the kind of things that didn't work, I think I see more of the not the failings of it, but some of the problems on it. But in terms of me sitting down and watching this, I was more entertained than I expected to be. Because it seemed on paper, even though the premise was different, that, okay, but I see, it'd be one thing if it had this premise and it was about Rita Moreno. But no, it's about the pretty young blonde. And that aspect of it was still kind of, not the most interesting lead, not the most dynamic romance. There were some things about that held it back a little bit, but I think Rita Moreno is so great in this. There's charm to what's going on around it. Even the set and the costumes felt a little bit elevated for this kind of thing. There's a lot here that I ended up kind of smiling at a little more than I normally would here. So overall, I think it's one that is not something to seek out and watch, but if you have to pick one out of a barrel to watch, I feel like this is one that anybody will find entertainment in. Yeah.
I would only recommend it to Rita Moreno diehard fans.
Oh, yes. And she does not sing or dance in it, which is very disappointing. I mean, they could not pay her enough to earn that. So on the other hand, I'm thinking no, she didn't. She's better than that, but still.
But she comes off great. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but just that thing of when you feel sorry for an actor and you're I hope this isn't their last movie. I hope I hope they don't go out on this note. But there is nothing for her to dislike about her performance. She should feel very proud of the work she did on this.
I hope most of the
Lifetime
budget
movie.
went to her or to her wine.
I hope so too.
One of the two. All right, so Kevin, you are a busy man this time of year, and especially this year where you have a Santa book to talk about.
Santa Doesn't Need Your Help
That's
is
right.
in stores and wherever fine books are sold. It was a short film that I made for Kevin Geeks Out, the variety show that I host that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
And we showed it as a 10-minute animated short. And the guy who illustrated it is Joe Dater. He's a New Yorker cartoonist. He has an agent, and he said, this really could be a book. And I'm going to show it to my agent. His agent took the link, showed it to some publishers, found a publisher, sold it. They came back and said, we're going to sell it as a children's book, not a humor book, because it will sell more as a children's book. So I accidentally wrote a children's book. And I know there are people who I would love nothing more than to write a children's book. I was not
Just
trying
don't try.
to. Yeah, I wasn't trying to. I made a short film that ended up as a kid's book. And now I'm learning about the challenges of the publishing world, which I just assumed would be, it'll be so much better than TV or film because it's books and book people are smart.
Maybe not. Yeah. Well, the book is smart, though. The book is a delight.
Thank you.
I know I guess it's classified as a children's book, but it made me laugh out loud many times. I'm also a child at heart, so perhaps there's that. But it is very funny. It is sharp. And I would say it's really good for all ages.
It's for grown-ups of all ages.
Oh, yes, definitely. It's for everybody from the little sign language girl to Rita Moreno, if you will, if you want to give a gap. Well, fantastic. And, of course, Kevin Geeks Out, you've got a million shows coming up. I don't know if this will be released in time for several of them, but there is throughout the dates, and there's one that I will be at as well. So December 14th in Beacon, New York, December 8th in Brooklyn.
Yeah, we're not going to hit the 8th.
No, we're not.
In the past at that point.
But if you end up in one of the Christmas movies, if you end up in one of the Christmas movies where the Ghost of Christmas Past can take you back, then they can take you back in time to a couple of Kevin Geeks Out.
There you go.
Yes. KevinGeeksOut.com for all these dates and all this more wonderful things. And on that note, I guess tell everybody what pearl of wisdom a Santa enthusiast such as yourself could leave to those listening.
You mentioned, I'm just going to, can I go here? Can I take a minute?
Please.
You mentioned the idea of a child saying, I want you to bring back my father who died or some impossible thing. The Santa I work with is Santa Glenn. He's been playing Santa for 40 years, and I directed a one-man show he did called I, Santa, Confessions from Behind the Beard, and he told these wonderful stories that are true stories of his adventures from playing Santa. And the first year, he went to a charity event that they have in early October, late September. It's a charity event they do, and the year was 2001, and it was a benefit for families who had lost loved ones on 9/11. And children came up and sat in his lap, and they asked Santa because they think Santa is real
and magical.
Santa, did you know what happened?
My gosh!
Did you hear what happened? So he had all these children telling him about the bad man who doesn't like America, who had a plane fly into the building. And he just had a kid say to him, my dad was in the building and my dad died. And Glenn had to say something. And he said, I knew your father. I used to bring him presents when he was your age. And every year your father was on the nice list.
Aww.
And the kid was so warmed by that.
Yeah.
And it was just oh my gosh, talk about when you're painted into
actually
a corner, what do you
improving
say to
a Santa Claus, yeah.
And he knows how to improvise as Santa Claus. And we hope to be bringing back I, Santa again in the future. It's this great show where he does it like a Reddit AMA where the audience is just supposed to ask questions, and then he just tells any question that somebody asks. He's got a great story to go with it because he's been playing Santa for 40 years. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Glenn who takes on those impossible questions when he plays Santa.
Well, and it really is, when you think of it from that other side, the position you're in, if a child absolutely is a Santa believer and has come to sit on your lap and tell their hero, their god, their, this elevated figure something very deep, there's a lot that can come out of a child's mouth at that point, and you have to be prepared. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess Santa does not need your help after all, since he figured that one out. So find Kevin, and Merry Christmas, everybody.
Santa's watching, Santa's waiting, Christmas Eve is slowly fading. Can you hear him in the night? Close the door, turn out the light. Santa's watching, Santa's creeping. Now you're nodding, now you're sleeping. Were you good for Mom and Dad? Santa knows if you've been bad. There might be a treat for you in Santa's bag of toys, but Christmas won't be fun and games for naughty girls and boys. Santa's watching, Santa's waiting, everybody's celebrating. Did you do your best this year to let now? 'Cause Santa's here. Santa's here.